Okay. How's it going, Andrea?
Doing very well, Dan. How are you?
Not too bad. So we've been going through this and talking to some current and former sluggers, and so you're kind of next on the hit list. And for those of you that either do or don't know, Andrea not only is a current coach, she does a lot of pitching instruction with a lot of our players, but she also helps out. I believe, what are you with one of the 16U teams this year?
16 with Ardito's team, yep.
Okay, so yep, 16U Ardito as well. And then and on top of all of that, she also is a former player for the Sluggers. So kind of cool to have somebody come back. And I guess the first thing that we want to talk about is your like post Slugger life. Like, what have you been doing with yourself? And I kind of know the story, but I'm gonna not steal any of your thunder and kind of let you know everybody else kind of what you've been doing.
All right. So post-Slugger journey started off at North Central College. I got to play there all 4 years, luckily. Had a great time over there, majored in exercise science and psychology minor, and took that into my journey into physical therapy. So then from there, I went on to physical therapy school over at Midwestern University in Downers Grove, and got my doctorate of physical therapy over there. So been working as a physical therapist since this, let's see, August, September. I just started. So I got my license over the summer, and now I'm working in senior living as a PT, and then, yep, pitching instruction on the side, and coaching a team with it as well. So keeping active in softball, going with physical therapy, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you seem like you're pretty busy. I know sometimes you show up at pitching lessons. And full disclosure, Coach Andrea is also my 8-year-old's pitching instructor. But she shows up in scrubs, some days, because comes straight from work right to pitching lessons and gets it going. So
Wouldn't be my if I wasn't busy every second of it.
no, absolutely. I live that life myself. So I guess going back to like the early history, like how'd you get into the Sluggers? Like what year did you join? Were you always one? What's your history as far as joining?
So I played my first year of travel ball with the Elk Grove Heat. Actually, I'm from Elk Grove Village, and I played 1 year when I was 9. I played 10 years with the Elk Grove Heat, and then following that season, like between 10 and 11, I went and tried out for the Sluggers, and I played for Jeff Jacobson my first year, and then after that, Jeff teamed up with Frank Hill to work with him after that. So joined when I was about 11, a little bit younger, and been with them ever since. So
That's great.
just was a different feel between all the tryouts, definitely stuck out compared to all the other teams I tried out for, just in terms of commitment, investment, the organization as a whole just sucked me in and been here ever since.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I could tell you just from experience, like that team that you ended up finishing out. I mean, it was rock stars. I mean, you guys had a ton of great players on that team. You guys did fantastic, and then I can speak super highly of both Jeff and Frank. They're great guys and great coaches. So you
Absolutely.
couldn't have probably stumbled into a better situation than what you did. I'm telling you.
Yeah. No, all those girls that I got to play with, majority of us still keep in contact. They're just the greatest. And I mean, we had Allie Bauk, Alyssa Lancaster, Alyssa Johnson, all those girls that still also stay involved in coaching and went on, and didn't even name half the girls that I played
No,
with.
yeah, there's the laundry list goes on. There are a lot
Yeah.
of played in college at a very high level. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic to see everybody be so successful. And I think we're working uh, on the second doctor, because I think Alyssa's going to be a doctor of optometry.
She sure is.
Yeah.
And then Alyssa Johnson has her master's occupational therapy, and I think might be going to transition into a doctorate sometime soon. But
Okay.
got a couple masters, a couple doctors.
Yeah, because Allie's a full-time math teacher and softball coach, and I mean, you guys have tremendous amount. I think Kim's doing something in like zoology or something.
Zoology, big cats,
Yeah, big
tiger
cats.
twins.
Oh yeah, it's like you go on and on. Everyone's pretty successful off of that team, both on the field and off the field.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
nice to see. So I guess we talked a little bit about it, but some coaches that were impactful to you and helped develop you as a player. I know you named Jeff and Frank, and I guess if there are any others, obviously throw them in the mix. But kind of what was it about them that made them really good?
Yeah, so like I said, played for Jeff and Frank, and then my mom actually got in the mix when I was about 12 years old. My mom came on, just to keep book and be an assistant, and then she ended up diving headfirst into it, and then some. She got very involved, and then Dana Bomer actually helped us out too. for quite some time. So it was just a great balance of all of them. I mean, I don't think I ever had a bigger cheerleader than Jeff Jacobson. I mean, he started coaching me with hitting from day one, and with all my highs, lows, and everything in between, he never, ever, ever gave up on me. And then, yeah, when Frank came in too, I mean, just his extensive knowledge and just everything that he brings to the table. I think they're so similar, but so different in their approaches that it just made for just such a great dynamic between them. And then, you know, being a parent coach yourself, having a daughter on the team and everything comes with its challenges for sure. But I think having my mom with me through, you know, being in long car rides after practices, after tournaments, everything like that was incredibly frustrating at times. But now I'm able to see that with, you know, my pitchers and everything. If they have a parent catching for them, telling them it's not necessarily how they're saying it and what you're internalizing, but you got to listen to what they're trying to tell you, because they truly do have your best interest at heart and they're really just there for you. Sorry, I'm getting off on tangents a little bit, but yeah. And then Coach Bomer, I mean, everyone calls her Bomer now. We always called her Dana, and they're like, "Oh, you call her Dana? We call her Bomer." I'm like, "No, it's always been Dana to us." And then, yeah, Dana brought in that aspect of too. We had a couple girls from her age, and I think a couple years younger, that were recently players, and then came back to join in and help out with coaching. So it was really awesome to have someone too who had just recently been through it, been through the whole college experience, everything like that. And I think Dana, Jen Jacobson, and Katie Otterness were some that came and helped us out. And that's what really inspired me to get into coaching myself, was seeing those girls that came back and gave back to their organization and helped us out so much. And they were just so cool. Like, you got to see the big girls come in all the time. Like, they did it. They're so awesome, you know? So having somebody that can kind of relate to what you're going through in Bomer was awesome. But yeah, I mean, we always had all hands on deck. We had a ton of people come and giving all kinds of information, all kinds of experience, and yeah, caring about you the whole way through. Like I said, always pushing to get us looked at by the best schools, getting into all these tournaments, all that kind of stuff. So they really went above and beyond for us. And I think that's why we were so fortunate to have such a great group, and why everyone is where they're at today. And it's no surprise that a whole chunk of us turned out doing great things, like you said, on and off the field, because we had the coaches that put in the time, heart, and investment every step of the way for 8+ years with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get to see some of it. Like, we walk into the Slugger facility, and there's obviously, we have our, you know, trophy section, and quite a few of those came from, you know, your team, like some really big tournaments that you guys won. So tell me about, like, I guess your most special moment with that team. Like, what was kind of the biggest thing you guys did?
So when we were our first year 16, we took second place at nationals. Back when NSA was one of the top tournament organizers, we took second at NSA nationals. And I would say that whole season was really special. I mean, making it to the national championship was something amazing that none of us will ever forget. But that whole season, we got to play up in a lot of 18U tournaments. And that year we played the 18U Colorado tournaments. We played the 18U Fireworks Colorado, and it was really humbling. That was the first time we ever really got our butts kicked handily by some teams. We were not used to that. We were usually the ones doing the butt kicking. Then we went out and played top tier gold 18U tournaments, and we got whooped a couple of times. And I think that, like I said, that humbling experience for all of us really kind of put us in our place, showed us how much work we had to do. And then when we went back down to playing, you know, 16U ball, went over to nationals, we just rode that tournament every single step of the way. And I think that the most special moment we had was the night before we played the championship game, when we all came together. I think Coach Hill has the video of it now, but we had a song that we would all sing together, like whenever we would travel to games and everything like that. And we all came together in the parking lot. We were filthy. We were wearing our white uniforms, and we were all head to toe caked in dirt and huddled together singing that song in the parking lot, just knowing that we're one step closer to that goal that we set out for all season long. And it was just so special. And it's something that I think none of us will ever forget.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard that story told from probably about 5 of you guys. Mm-hmm. And everybody points to that as like that moment. Like, I don't know if you guys have talked afterwards and all got on the same page, or if it was really that special to everybody, but everybody points to that moment, that tournament from that team. And you guys were together for a really long time. So it's a lot to be said.
Yeah.
So I guess how would you prepare physically and mentally? Like just to go back, you were obviously a pitcher. You're a
Mm.
pitching coach now, but you also were a position player as well. I think you played outfield, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And so, depending on obviously whether you were pitching or not, I'm sure you had to prepare a little differently. But what were some of the mental and physical things you went through to get yourself ready to play?
Um, Quite a lot. I mean, I'm sure talking to Coach Frank, he might have told you how much conditioning he had us do. I don't even want to know how many push-ups or suicides we would do in a given practice, but it was a lot. I think definitely one thing that was very different when I was playing versus what I see a lot of now, even what I saw in college too, is that we did not integrate time for pitchers and catchers within our own practices. That was always taken upon ourselves. So personally, what John Hanrahan, my former pitching coach, would always tell us that if you wanted to be a top tier pitcher, you had to pitch 5 days a week. And I know for a lot of people that seems very extreme, but when I first started with him, that's what he told us. He said, if you want to be good, you got to practice outside of lessons at least, 2 to 3 times a week. If you want to be elite, you got to practice 5 days a week with pitching. So I did. And that was just second nature to me. We would come in the summer, we had 4-hour long practices, which again seems a little bit extreme to us now, but we would come beforehand. We would do our pitching practice before. We would sit and practice for 4 hours. And then wash, rinse, repeat. We would do the same thing all week long. So I think the combination of the conditioning, putting in the work for your position, no matter what it is, if you're an infield, getting an extra infield work, outfielder, the same pitching and catching. And it's amazing to see now when I come in and coach my pitching lessons, just how many girls are actually taking that advice and taking that to heart, that every single time I come in and I have a lesson, there's at least 2 to 3 other tunnels filled with pitchers getting their extra time in. So I think, like I said, taking the extra time to specialize on your position, but then when you're at practice, learning every other position so that you are that well-rounded player. Because I wasn't sitting through our team practices going, oh gosh, I just can't wait till we get to the part where I pitch. No, practice was for team practice, was for hitting, was for defense, was for everything else. And that extra piece that had to be out on my own. So yeah, really putting in the extra time, regardless of how many days a week you have to offer, putting in those extra days, come into practice with a good head on your shoulders, no matter what, ready to work, and then conditioning, whether it's in practice, out of practice, be in shape so that the next practice you can continue to grow rather than just staying stagnant where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's like a lot of people just don't realize how much work goes into being great. Like you could be good and
Hmm.
just kind of put a little bit into it, but if you want to be great, it takes that extraordinary
Yeah.
effort. And hopefully we're teaching our athletes at the youngest of ages how what a good work ethic is and how to approach practice mentally. And so it's just so important that people come and practice with a purpose and be focused. And I see some teams do that very well, and those teams usually perform well in tournaments, and the teams that don't, sometimes they don't, they're
Right.
not ready. So tell me a little bit. You had mentioned earlier that Coach Jeff stuck with you, and so you obviously at one point went through some adversity. Like what's some of the obstacles that you had to kind of break through to become a really good player and ultimately go play in college?
I think the biggest thing in the world for me was mental game. Especially with pitching too, is that I never had trouble with putting in the work. I was always happy to do it. And then I think through the amount that I prepared, um, I was there on the physical part. If I was throwing pitching practice, anything like that, I could hit spots, boom, 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 go at it. And then especially when I was starting around high school, I would say 14, 15, during that lovely transitional teenage period, I started to really struggle with the mental game. And we had been practicing it for a long time, and I was, doing the work with that too. And I think I understood it on a surface level, and I understood what it was trying to do. But then again, when I would step out into those games and things wouldn't go my way, I had a really hard time keeping that good head on my shoulders all the time. And it's something that I didn't fully learn and embrace until I was in college. It took me that many years to fully understand and fully integrate what they were trying to teach us for the longest time with the mental game. And I think it's really interesting because that's one of the first like really big compliments and stuff that my college coach gave me when we started actually playing games is like your composure and your attitude on the mound and like leadership and without even having to say things. And I even had some parents come and approach me too, saying that like just your, without saying like mental game specifically, they just said like the way that you carry yourself on the mound is like so amazing. And that was something that I had struggled with for years. So finally getting to hear that from people and actually feel it was something that was really amazing. But yeah, it took me from the entire time I played Sluggers, probably didn't start getting there until about 18. And then once I hit college, it finally sunk into my skull. So yeah, I think that was the big difference maker for me was I had all the physical preparation that I needed, but you know, when times got tough, I suffered mentally, I think. And, but yeah, having both Coach Frank and Jeff, and like I said, obviously my mom being a cheerleader the whole time too, was they would sit and work through those kind of things with me and continue to teach mental game and do all those kinds of things to the point where when it really, really mattered, which was my whole college career, it was something that I excelled at that I didn't, like I said, just kind of have. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. It was something that I was really proud of myself for and that my coach also saw in me too.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's the mental side. It's, you ask that question to any player early on in their career and you're like, what percentage do you think is the game is mental? And everyone's like, yeah, 70, 80, whatever, 90% mental. And you're like, okay, well then why don't you practice your mental game 80
Right.
or 90%? And it's like it that's the light bulb moment for every player. It's like, okay, well, it is important. Like we should practice it. We should work on it. And I think even to this day, even those that value it so much, like you can just never spend enough time on it. Like it's impossible to, and you have to have a skill set to be able to teach it
Mm.
well. And so, people have resorted to bringing in mental game coaches and experts. And so, it's neat how that part of the game has evolved in softball. It's like
Yeah.
everybody values it tremendously. Where when you guys were doing it, it was probably looked at a lot, still by a segment of people like voodoo. Like, what do you mean people are teaching mental game? But it's really, really important. I mean, it really is. It's like I can tell you that the players that did the best that I've ever coached had really strong mental games. Like
Mm.
I can't point to their physical skills as much as I can their attitude and their mental approach. So yeah, super, super important. And the Sluggers, I think, have always done a very good job in that area. So I'm going to ask you a question. It's kind of a pitcher specific question. So if you had to choose only two of these as a pitcher, which two would you choose and why? So if you were a pitcher and you could be really good at two of these four things, what would you pick? One is speed, one is spin, one is location, and one is change of speed. So which two would you pick out of those four?
Ooh, that's tough.
Okay.
I would have to go with location and change of speed. Um, with a close third on spin, and then I would put speed last. And I think if you asked my 15-year-old self that same question, I would say, I want to get 10 miles an hour faster and I want to throw so much faster. But I think really too, I've seen firsthand a lot of people be just so dominantly effective with a combination of movement and location. But I think the reason that I put change of speed in there above spin is because if you can move the ball and locate it, that's excellent. But if you're throwing the exact same speed the entire time, it's only going to get you so far. And same thing with throwing speed. If you can throw speed and location or speed and move the ball, that's great. But if you can't vary that, because as the game evolves and hitters evolve, hitters are getting so good. Hitters are getting so good. And if you just try to overpower them, there's always going to be, unless you're throwing Monica Abbott 75 miles an hour, there's always going to be a hitter that can time you, and it's only going to get you so far. So you see a lot of girls who come in and throw gas that they can't locate. So they're either going to have a bunch of walks or have some balls get really hard, hit really hard off of them. And I think if you rely only on spin, junk ball pitcher, you don't have that command. I think if you have command of your spots and then are able to throw people off, I always teach my girls, and I always threw 3 speeds, a fast speed, change up speed, and then kind of a middle clip speed. I think that's super, super effective in keeping people on their toes and always keeping hitters guessing.
Yeah, I can tell you just from a hitter's perspective is I still think to this day the hardest pitch in the world to hit is a good changeup. Like
Yep.
it kills you. I mean, it's just devastating. So
Yep.
yeah. So what if you were looking for, like, if you were picking a pitching staff and you could pick any qualities in those pitchers, what do you think makes up a great pitcher? Like what kind of qualities would you be looking for? And like even a young, so I coach 7, 8, and 9s.
Mhm.
So if I'm looking at trying to develop a pitcher, what should I be looking for that I think will be a good quality to make that kid a really good pitcher?
I would have to say focus, work ethic, and leadership. And what I'm seeing a lot in coaching a lot of those younger girls in pitching is that, surprisingly, I know a lot of them have no trouble talking to their friends outside of practice, but then you get them to try to communicate with a catcher, or tell their teammates what to do. I think they still almost kind of see it as they don't want to hurt their friends' feelings. Those are their friends. But I'd say it goes for every position on the field, but especially with pitching, you have to be able to be a leader, and you have to be able to command a field, because ultimately you're involved in every single play. You're throwing every single pitch, and everyone's looking at you. You're right in the middle of the field. So if you are going to be very demure and not commanding your field, what are you doing out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say, outside of the physical ability, looking for somebody who's really a leader and really willing to lead their team. And I tell this to the girls all the time. I ask them what their favorite other position to play is, other than pitching, obviously, because pitching is every pitcher's favorite position.
Every
Um,
kid on the team wants to pitch until they realize how much work goes.
right. So I have them pick their second favorite position. And then I say, okay, if you're playing shortstop and you look over in the circle and your pitcher looks like she's defeated, how are you going to feel playing behind her? Probably not very good.
Yeah.
So I think keeping the positivity and setting the tone for your team, regardless of how things are going, is just so incredibly important in pitchers from ages 8 all the way up through however old you're playing to.
Yeah, no, it's hard, and girls that you want them to develop kind of that alpha attitude, like
Yeah.
it's the same. I would say the same thing goes for catchers as well, and so that's what I always look at. It's the problem is I look around, a group of 8 and 9 year olds, and I don't know if the alphas even know they're alphas yet.
Right.
It's crazy. It's like they're all, shy. A couple are starting to come out of their shells and everything. And so I'm just waiting for those personalities to better form so I can kind of get an idea of who it is. But it's amazing. It's those kids during this whole quarantine, they'll probably all come back with completely different attitudes. Like they grow and change so much at the younger ages. But yeah, I agree with you. I think you got to have somebody that's going to take charge. It's going to want the ball. That's going to have good body posture and body language out there. And so everybody's looking at you. That's the one position that everybody's looking at you every single pitch. So I guess to wrap it up, what do you think? What do you think of the whole, COVID-19 and kids are on quarantine, and what do you think players can do at home right now to kind of help themselves stay sharp at this point? I guess, what are you telling some of your 16-year-olds? What are some of the things that your pitching students are coming to you for? What do you what's your advice to them at home, because they don't have the same resources that they have, at a field or at our training facility or whatever?
Absolutely. I would say right now is a great, great time to study the game. Um, I think something that I would have really benefited for, and a lot of us I think would have benefited for, that is so much more readily available to girls now that they don't even realize is such an advantage for them, is just being able to hop on YouTube in 2 seconds and pull up old game footage and be able to watch old games or watch plays and stuff like that, that you can literally just hop on in 2 seconds and be watching things like that and learning. So I think using all of the tools that they have now to do that and study the game a little bit more on top of the mental game that we had mentioned too. But I know that Coach Vince had reached out to me as well. I'm putting together, or I have put together some workouts for the girls to be able to do at home. Body weight exercises or, homemade weights with paint cans and everything like
Yeah.
that. And I know Coach Borgman too has put together some drills they can do, but I mean, saying it's so, from everyone that I've talked to with this, it's so easy that even though we're sleeping in and not really doing much during the day, everyone feels tired, right? Everyone feels tired. And what I tell my girls over the summer all the time is, even if you don't have anything to wake up for, set an alarm and wake up. Even if it's at 9:30 in the morning, set an alarm and wake up, get into a routine so that you're not falling into a hole. And in that routine, work in a little bit of time to do the physical workout, drill work if you can. And then, like I said, if you're already going to be sitting on your computer, on your phone all day, use it to pull up some really good information and to learn a little bit more about the game. And all in all, just realize that there is an end in sight. I know it keeps changing every day what day that end is going to be,
And today, but yeah, that's okay.
but that there is going to be, an eventual end to this. And yeah, I would say the scary part is just, having the high school season and college seasons be canceled and everything like that. Not really knowing when they're going to get to play again, but doing everything you can in the meantime to make sure that when that day finally does come, you feel like you're ready. And it's not the same, like you said, as being outside, being able to practice on the field and with your team, but picking your teammates up, being there for them if you need them, just as you would on the field, but reaching out to everyone, making sure everyone else is doing okay, and then taking care of yourself as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I will let you go. We definitely has been insightful. I think everybody's going to take some good stuff from this, and I truly appreciate everything you do, and not only for me and my daughter personally, but for the organization. It's great to have you guys around, the players that come back and give back. It's just awesome, and I know it means a lot to the current players and families that are part of the organization. So much appreciated, I can tell you from my perspective, and happy to have the opportunity to talk to you. And hopefully everybody takes time to watch this and learn a little bit. I think it was very insightful, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'll talk to you soon. You take care.
Sounds good, Dan. Thank you.
Stay safe. Yep. Bye bye.